back again. My guest tonight is Paul Kane. Paul's a Dearborn guy and running for...
State representative.
And you want to take on Agnes, right?
That's right.
That's,
I'm ready.
You're ready. Paul, tell me why we should even think about... You're a Libertarian. Most people don't know what that is, where most of us are either Democrats or Republicans.
And there's not a whole lot of difference between them.
Yeah, well, that's true. In fact, was it Buchanan was saying that the other day? He said, you know, it's the same thing. But tell me basically why we ought to vote for Paul Kane. Here's your chance. I'm giving you some free time, not even charging you.
Okay, I believe that the U.S. government's pretty much out of control. They are overstepping their bounds over and over again. What we need is a state government which is strong enough to stand up against this U.S. government. We need strong, confident people who have read the Constitution and understand what the Constitution says.
Who's read the Constitution?
We've all been taught that the Constitution is the law of the land, but when you start reading through it, you find that they're not listening to this here. They're not doing that anymore. Like right in the very beginning of the Constitution, it says, all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in the Congress. But we have everyone up in Washington making laws, whether they call them regulations or laws or executive orders from the president. They are all interpreted as laws. They write all these laws, and we, out of fear, just do as they're told, or as they state.
Now, if you, as a Libertarian, what would you do? I mean, how would you handle it?
I believe less government is better. We are adults. We don't need a government which tells us how to live our lives, how to be safe. We should know that ourselves. So as a Libertarian, less government is better.
But isn't that basically what the Republicans say, more or less? Don't they say that? At least they say it more than the Democrats. The Democrats like
it's
laws.
lip service. We have Republicans, I'm not so sure that they want less government. They want different government. They would rather legislate your morality. They want you to go to counseling before you get married, as if that's going to help your marriage. I don't need the government to tell me, go to counseling before I get married.
But most people don't even know what the Libertarian stands for. I mean, what do you, outside of that, you're just saying less government, but what, you have to stand for something, you know? They're saying, well, I'm again, now what are you for?
The Constitution.
Well, who's read the Constitution? Come on.
Well,
these
the very
kids
first
won't even
thing,
know. I'll bet you dollars to donuts that these youngsters here would have a hard time telling me the difference between the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of the United States.
well, let's not put them on the spot.
Yeah, let's
but
put them on the spot.
The law, I was always taught that the Constitution was the law of the land. The very first thing that every one of our elected officials does is takes an oath to uphold the Constitution. But then it seems that they forget about it. The way the game is played is they get up there, they start passing laws, law after law. They don't really worry about whether it's constitutional or not. What you have to do, well, what happens is somebody finally gets arrested for having done something wrong, supposedly broken a law, and then you appeal it to court, and finally you get to the Supreme Court, they throw out the law, they say, that's an unconstitutional law. It should never have been a law in the first place. Well, why should each of us, any of us, have to fight all the way to the Supreme Court on a law that never should have been a law in the first place? If we had people who kept the vow that they took to uphold the Constitution, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. We wouldn't have a whole lot of citizens fearful that every time they turn around, they might be doing something wrong. Oh no, do I have my seatbelt on? I don't need the government to tell me to wear my seatbelt. I'm a big boy. I know what happens if I get in a car accident.
Well, now that assumes a certain modicum of intelligence.
Yes?
Now, as a teacher over 33 years, I want to tell you that it is my observation, and this may be a shocker to some people, that not all individuals have the intelligence to understand that they should be wearing seat belts or helmets, and maybe you have to tell them some things. You know,
well,
if you look at young people, a lot of them are bright, but they haven't had the experience yet. And they go out and they, on Friday and Saturday night, in fact, the other night, some kids that I know had a party, and they were drinking, carrying on, and the parent wasn't even there. Now, you would think that an adult parent would have enough brains to know that teenage high school kids are going to get together, and some of them are going to bring liquor and pot, and guess what happens? You know, if all of a sudden somebody gets killed, then everybody wrings their hands. But, you know, maybe you have to have a government. Now, I'm sort of...
Kids certainly are the responsibility of the parents. The parents must be responsible, and
But what if they're not? What do you do if they're not? That's what I'm saying, Paul.
One of the problems with all this government, the way that the Democrats and Republicans think, is that we always have to boil things down to the lowest common denominator. We have to make laws for that 1% of people who are the worst, who can't take responsibility for themselves. I don't think that every responsible, respectable, hardworking Michigan citizen should have to live by rules with a government looking down over their back, making sure they're always following the rules, because we have 1% of lowlifes who refuse to be adults.
How do we deal then, in your world, how do we deal with those lowlifes that don't obey the law? Because we know that criminals, it's the same percentage keep going back, you know, over and over. They keep doing the same in high school. The same jerks are jerks throughout the school year. What do we do with that? How do you handle that group?
Prisons are necessary.
Oh, okay.
Work camps, perhaps, are necessary.
Now, what about, what's your feeling on drugs, Paul? Years ago, it seems to me you were an advocate of what? Legalizing marijuana?
Drugs is certainly a touchy topic. It's another one of those things that an adult should know how to take care of themselves.
Right.
That they don't need mommy, and certainly they don't need government to be their mommy to tell them not to do it. Now, it's interesting that during Prohibition, we had a constitutional amendment to make it illegal to drink.
Nobody
then
obeyed
we
it.
repealed that amendment with another amendment to say alcohol is okay, but it's just automatically illegal to do drugs.
How does the Libertarians feel about drugs? What's their policy on it? You know, there are some very thoughtful people have said that we ought to legalize them.
Well,
I mean,
we know
bright,
that the drug
intelligent
war
people.
is certainly not working. We're spending so much money, and we're not getting any further. The fact that they're illegal causes there to be a huge financial reward for getting away with selling them.
You think we ought to legalize them and then let the government take the money?
Not legalize, decriminalize.
Decriminalize. What's the difference? Explain that to me.
By legalizing, it's saying the government deems it okay to do drugs.
Okay.
By non-criminalizing it, it just means it's not the government's problem. The government, keep your nose out of it. If people then cause the crimes that are caused today because of drugs, then we use the laws that are already on the books to incarcerate those criminals.
I'm a school teacher, and I see what drugs do to some kids.
Yes.
Not all. A lot of kids
Yes.
use drugs, and there's no problem. I got to tell you. I mean, at least marijuana that I know of, and you know, they don't become addicts. Or there's a lot of scare stories, but I also see it affecting certain kids. In fact, I have two right now that I really don't know. I see them going down. I've talked to them, and yet, you know, how do we handle that? You know.
The fact that it's illegal creates a certain amount of glamour. Junior high, high school kids like to do things that are wrong. And
Right.
so because drugs are wrong and they're not supposed to do it, they're getting away with something. They're fighting the
system.
establishment.
Yeah, right. I understand
And so
that.
they're doing it just to, fight back.
You know, to
Take
you know.
some of the glamour out of it. They may not want to do it.
Well, some might, but there's still the high that they like. You
And
know,
of course, it's the parents' responsibility again. Parents must be aware of what their kids are doing.
Well, see, but that goes all down to the assumption that we are all informed and we are all dutiful parents. And the fact is, by 2010, I think, it's either 2010, 2001, half of the children born in the United States will be born to unwed mothers. That was a figure. Now, that sounded astounding to me. But when you think about that, we have already a breakdown of the family. Aren't what you're suggesting that we're going to break it down further?
Morality is key to a country being free. There must be morals. People must respect each other. They must respect themselves. And that respect is what people must be taught, as well as the knowledge of how to make a living legally, honestly, without hurting the next person.
How do we do that, though? I've been teaching all these years, and I talk about these things in class and talk to them privately about these things, and yet I'm not sure that we get through to these kids. I mean, how would you if you were a representative, how would you go about helping to build a moral country? How would you go about as a libertarian saying, look, this is how we ought to do, that we ought to have respect for one another. We ought to have enough sense that we don't have a right to shoot other people or stabbing or robbing. How do you do that? You're, in one sense, you're saying against government, and yet if the individuals aren't doing it, what is left to do it? The family structure is breaking down in our society.
Well, it's really not the government's job to play mommy and daddy to the kids. We should stop thinking that it's the government's job. Once we get government out of that, but they do it so much now with welfare and...
Oh yeah, we're giving them breakfasts, and before long we'll give them dinner at school too, I suppose.
See, it's really not the government's job to worry about that. I hate to say it, it's the teacher's job and the parents' job.
Shouldn't be hate to say it, I agree. It is part of our job. That's what you pay me for. But I'm just wondering how you make up for all these. We've had 40 years of democratic destroying the family, all in the name of saving the family. They've been destroying individual responsibility by letting government do this, government do that, take care of this, take care of that. And we've destroyed it. We've created a whole generation or two generations that are welfare dependent. They've never been off of welfare. They have never had a true, what we consider a family with a father, a mother, and people that would handle these responsibilities. Now, where the hell do we go? How do you guys back up and make that happen for the lost time?
Little by little. We can't do it overnight. We have to find the experts who do know how to do these things.
Experts? That's what Washington is loaded with. Experts. Paul, are you kidding? They're all over the place. And one man's expert is another man's poison.
A person who has to take care of themselves, earn themselves a living, doesn't have time to be irresponsible. The neighbors will not let you be irresponsible. If you leave your yard trashy, the neighbors are going to be on your back pretty quick. Maybe the first thing to do is you call your government and complain about them. Wait. Before you call the government, always asking them to step in, do something. Why don't you walk down there, talk to your neighbor?
And get shot. That's what happened today.
It could happen.
I was driving in Detroit the other day, and I thought, I hope I don't have a flat tire, because I'm afraid.
Do feel pretty safe. That's true.
Yep, that's right.
We're not in Detroit.
And I'm thinking, yeah, that'd be great if all those people, because we were talking about. I have a philosophy, and it's not an unknown philosophy, that you judge each individual as an individual, be he black, be he Arab, be he Russian, be he Polish, be he pot smoker, be he an Indian, that you take each individual, because I found in my experience in life that individuals, you can't tell whether by the color of their skin or their ethnic background or whatever, what kind of people they are. It's on a one-on-one.
You're absolutely right.
But then how do I know that guy over there is one of those that understands that and respects human life? I don't know how that would happen. I think maybe what we need is not less government, but a military dictatorship. Well, you know, some people say that would do it. And by the way, that frightens the hell out of me too, because remember,
Two?
Oh yeah. See, I see either extremes as very frightening to me, and yet I don't know the solution to these problems. I wish I did. If I had them.
Well, we know automatically that all the libertarian views are never going to get implemented in Lansing overnight. This would be, but we're moving so much in the direction of too much government, almost that military dictatorship.
Yep.
We've got to start swaying it the other way, towards less government, to self-reliance, to being responsible for yourself. Little by little, we'll get there. It won't be overnight.
Now, if somebody wants to contact you and get involved in your campaign, how do they do that, Paul Kane?
Paul Kane, 313, will win is the phone number. That's
Will win, W-I-L-L?
That's right, W-I-L-L-W-I-N, or 9455946.
Wait, go that slow. 945
5946.
9 was it 94?
Yes,
55946.
Or will win.
You know,
Paul Kane
I prefer the numbers. I hate
and
that
the
thing.
Constitution will win.
And you're the Libertarian candidate. Good luck, Paul. Come
Thanks,
back.
Ross.
I hope I didn't frighten you too much.
Oh, it's fine.
This is all right.
Good.
Well, it'll be fun. We'll have other candidates on. Russ Gibb, don't go away.